Hello, I am Robert Eggers, the director and co-writer of The Northman. This shot was incredibly difficult to do. It was raining while we were shooting it. The snow is artificial, and you can't see the rain. But we were pushing the dolly down the hill, and then we had to at the very bottom of the hill, push it forward. And it took a whole lot of muscle to make that work. And then this camera move here required a special head, an Oculus head, which just does not perform well outdoors, particularly in the rain, and was constantly short-circuiting. So that was quite tricky. So this raid of the Slavic village is one of the sequences that I am proud of and do think is successful. It took a lot of hard work. CC Smith, the stunt coordinator, worked so hard with me and Jaron Blaschke, the DP, on being able to articulate our vision. And with the horse falls and all this stuff, I mean, it was a nightmare. And we spent, I don't know how many times we visited this location with a viewfinder, restaking all these buildings so that they would all be built in such a way that we could achieve this shot and move the dolly through it and have enough room for the horses and see down the different alleyways to get enough depth. Yeah, it was difficult to achieve. Our Cirrus is played by Björk, who had some input into her costume, which is probably the most theoretical costume in the movie. This headdress is based on bridal headdresses from a later period in Ukraine, but we tried to do our own spin on it and make it more primitive. And these cowrie shells, I suppose that where they're found in burials near skulls could suggest that they were over the eyes, but if you'll notice, the women in the village, when it's being raided, are wearing them on their headbands, but it was important to Björk to have some kind of a third eye. So this idea of hanging the cowrie shells in front of her eyes, I think is pretty cool. This was unsurprisingly shot on stage with a replica of that same ship, but we only built 2/3 of it. And so this is on a gimbal. And that tent is sort of cheated to be on the wrong side of the boat, but I don't think you can pick up on it. Again, this is another kind of sequence that would usually be like a big montage of a whole lot of quick shots. So it was difficult to not be boring, have a lot of drama, show the storm, have the gimbal not look like a gimbal, and really sell that water in the background so that it really feels real. See everybody struggling, but really it's just a shot that's slowly dolling in from a wide into Alex's face. Sam Conway was our special effects supervisor who designed this little gag for our corpse to fall apart. And a similar thing happens in Milius's Conan the Barbarian when Conan's in a burial chamber and gets his sword, the skeleton falls apart. And Sam Conway's dad was the special effects supervisor for Conan and did that gag. So that is pretty neat. So this is Iceland. This is at Stöng. So this is actually the longhouse that we did a sort of larger scale version of. And this was something that we shot after principal photography to get a little more exposition, which, I think we found that it needed to get a little bit more in Alex's head and build Alex and Anya's relationship a bit more. So this is a scene that does that. And this is in the Mourne Mountains, which was a pretty good double for Iceland. And I, really didn't want to have to shoot this on a green screen or something horrific like that. So Naomi Liston, the locations manager, had to create a road to get us here. The crew had to hike to set. The cast was helicoptered in. It was quite a feat to get out here for this Knout Laker sequence. Also, again, you can't tell it, but it was cold as hell. I mean, these guys who are playing the fallen teammates said that the worst part of this was lying on the cold ground. So I wanted to only hear the hallucinations and not see them. I don't know if that was the best choice, but the sound design by James Harrison and his team, and particularly Damien Volpe, who worked with me on The Lighthouse and my short films, is certainly cool. And the score here is pretty interesting. That whirring sound is based on a bull roarer, which is a Viking Age instrument. But then Robin and Seb's partner, who's the first violinist on the film, Raki, realized that they could make that sound on a stringed instrument, which is pretty weird and remarkable. Nicole, in the beginning of this scene, she's front lit and looks very vulnerable as she's making this discovery about the fact that her son's alive, and we don't know what's going on with her, but we just have this kind of harsh, vulnerable light. And then as she steps forward towards him and crosses the fire, she becomes more and more underlit, like, Boris Karloff in a Universal horror movie, and becomes quite demonic looking. And it's cool that Nicole's willing to, look like a demon. This and the next scene at the summit, or near the summit of Hecla, were shot in a quarry outside Belfast, and Craig imported all this black sand to make it look more like Hecla. I actually think, we scouted Hecla and, and shot the plates of the volcano for the erupting and smoldering stuff, and I think it is pretty successful, especially given it's just a quarry. You can see Fjellner's done his best little version of a Viking burial and has sacrificed the horse. You don't really clock this, but he's also given his armor and helmet to Gunnar. So this is all shot in this quarry with ash and smoke and all kinds of horrible stuff. It was pretty hard for the guys to fight with all this horrible black smoke. Claes's sword fighting right here is quite good, I gotta say. He was off for a few weeks, just while we were shooting other scenes, just working on this sword fight. Basically, we had LEDs, Jaren had it, and Seamus the gaffer had embedded these LEDs into the quarry that then got replaced digitally by lava.